What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon 466 Cards, and today we're going to talk about a possible shift in priorities at Beckett based off of the article I'm showing on the screen. So this came out from Ben Burrows on Collect on January the 2nd, talking about Beckett signing their authentication team to long-term contracts. And on its face, this is great news, right? This is clearly tied to Collectivist, their new umbrella organization. This is tied to the $250 million in financing. And I'm sure as a condition of this financing, they had to do this. This was part of it. We have to lock up this team to long-term contracts. That's great. You're spending the money to reinforce the Beckett brand and make sure that the team stays there and doesn't go to PSA or wherever else, right? So that's great. But here's the thing. This is the authentication team, right? This is not the grading team because, as you can see here, it's Steve, Grad, Brian, Zach, Charlie, Larry. You go to the Beckett authentication website and it's Steve, Brian, Charlie, Larry. And this is about autograph authentication, right? World-renowned autograph experts Steve, Grad, and Brian bring their vast experience with autographs from all genres and eras to the forefront of BAS. They have authenticated some of the rarest and most valuable items in the industry, a testament to their level of expertise. With a full range of services for your autograph collection, BAS is the only authentication company you'll ever need. As you can see here, authentication, autographs, autograph authenticator. So this is not the grading team. This is the authentication team, and specifically autograph authentication, seems like. And so this has nothing to do with fixing this card grading problem at Beckett, and the problem being nobody wants to grade with them anymore. And if you're thinking, well, this article came out on January 2nd, the $250 million financing, that news came out on December 19th, maybe there is another news release or press release talking about the Beckett grading side. Well, I'd tell you that's wrong, because if you go on Google, search for news items from the past month, look up Beckett collectibles, these are the 4 articles that you see. This is the authentication article we just talked about, the new parent company, the new parent company, and the new parent company. And if you go on the next, there's nothing else. If you look for Collectivist, it's the same thing. The $250 million in financing, new parent company, new parent company. There's nothing that talks about grading. And so it is a very interesting order of operations here. You announce the new parent company, right? You announce, new parent company here 2 weeks ago. The next day, you announce $250 million in financing, and then your first actual operations press release is about the authentication team, which leaves me, and it should leave you wondering, where does the grading team stand? To me, this tells me you, as Beckett, as Collectivist, as the people running the show over there, are prioritizing the authentication team over the grading team. Because this is the very first press release that you release after all the stuff with Collectivist and the $250 million. That tells me this is your number one priority, not the grading side. And maybe there are changes on the grading side that haven't been announced, but the fact that you announced this first and maybe you do something with the grading team down the road, that tells me where your priorities lie. And if something was already done with the grading team, you could have just baked that into this press release and say, we have re-upped with the authentication team. We also are doing a bunch of stuff with the grading team, and here are all the things that we're doing. We're modernizing, digitizing our grading experience, the platform, hiring graders, whatever it is. You could have lumped it all together in one press release, but instead, you've said this is the number one thing. Alternatively, you could have also waited to announce this until there was stuff that you could bundle together with the grading piece, but you haven't. This is just solely about the autograph authentication, nothing at all about grading. And To me, that speaks volumes about where their priorities lie. And it makes me wonder, have the people at Beckett started just waving the white flag on the grading side? Have they said, we're going to just run it as it is, maybe make some minor changes, but the authentication side, that's going to be where we hang our hat on. That is where we are going to prioritize and put resources behind. And the grading stuff will come second, because that is what you are doing by saying, I am prioritizing the announcement of the authentication team contracts, and nothing has come out about the grading side. If there's something major coming out about grading, you could have just waited on this announcement so that you put it all together about, here are all the big changes coming from Beckett. And maybe have the CEO or someone from the Beckett team come out and do an interview with Collect, with anybody in the hobby, with Jeff Wilson, saying, here are all the things we're doing. We've re-signed the authentication team to long-term contracts. We're doing this with the grading side, yada yada yada. But instead, just the authentication team. Happy New Year. And to me, this speaks volumes about their strategic priorities and their strategic direction. And I could be wrong. Something might come out on January 6th or 7th that says we're doing a bunch of stuff with the grading side as well. But if it was going to come out a few days later, why wouldn't you just bundle it all together in one announcement? And that suggests to me that there's nothing to announce on the grading side yet. And so that also tells me the $250 million, their number one priority was sign the authentication team to contracts. Grading side, I don't know, we'll do something, but that's not our number one concern. The low-hanging fruit here, the most important thing here is the authentication team. So that's an interesting change in how the hobby is thinking about, or should be thinking about, Beckett, because we've always thought that their number one thing to fix and their number one priority is to address the grading problem, or I guess lack of grading problem. Beckett's actions tell me otherwise. They tell me that the authentication is also a moneymaker and that they care a lot about that. And this, maybe they care less about it than we think. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching. I'll talk to you next time. Cheers.